They take much more of a philosophy that the third world is too weak and volatile and unstable, and what it needs is strong military defenses against any kind of Soviet invasion or infiltration.
President Kennedy comes to power in 1960, and you talk about it being a shaky relationship with the Shah. They don't seem to be fans of each other. Why?
No, they really loathe each other. It's interesting. I mean, publicly, officially, the U.S. and Iran are good friends, but they simply don't share a vision. It's interesting. I mean, I think you can look at it, on a sort of psychological level. They're men of roughly the same age, but they're very different in their political temperament. The Shah has been in power for a while, and he doesn't respect Kennedy. He thinks Kennedy is a kind of neophyte, that he doesn't really understand world politics, that he's too idealistic, that he hasn't been in power long enough. That the Shah really respects Nixon, thinks he's a man who really understands. He's a realist who understands how the world works. He really is rooting for Nixon to win the 1960 election, and is very disappointed.
And by the way, Nixon takes a shine to the Shah all the way back to '53 as well, right? That's mutual, right?
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, Nixon was Eisenhower's vice president during the 1953 coup, and played a role in securing the Shah's power. And he's the first American vice president to visit Iran in 1954, immediately after the coup, or excuse me, at the end of '53. They have a long-standing. They really grow to like each other from very, very early on, and Nixon they both see each other as people who are kind of realistic and kind of understand realpolitik and But the Shah looks at Kennedy as someone who's a dreamer and an idealist, and he hears these speeches about the kind of the new frontier and so on, and he just thinks this guy doesn't get it. He doesn't get that we're dealing with the Soviet Union with an 1,100-mile border on our north. We need strength, we need discipline, we need military hardware, we need a strong military to defend against the Soviet Union. The Shah is a strongly anti-communist leader. And later in the Cold War, the American presidents like Johnson and Nixon really come to value that. But Kennedy has this belief, and it's a holdover from the kind of, in some ways, the Truman Democrats. In some ways, it's this kind of belief that the way you fight communism in the developing world, in the third world, is not by supporting strongmen, building up military, but actually by supporting leaders who are trying to reform and provide kind of social welfare and improved living conditions, because that will take away the appeal of communism in third world countries. It will make people less likely to turn to communism if their bellies are full, if if their schools are good and their hospitals are good and so on. That's a very different approach. The Shah doesn't believe that, and neither do the Republicans, neither do Nixon, and Kissinger and so on. They take much more of a philosophy that the third world is too weak and volatile and unstable, and what it needs is strong military defenses against any kind of Soviet invasion or infiltration, and then you can worry about kind of domestic reform agendas. Right. So that's the core of the disagreement between Kennedy and the Shah.